Welcome to another webinar about the WEBCON Way. This one is all about tasks, or put another way, tasks, but better. And what I'd like to jump right into is the difference between the way we at WEBCON do tasks and the way most everyone else does tasks. Tasks for the other guys, and I mean almost everyone else out there. I'm not unfamiliar with the way a lot of other systems work, Power Automate and several third-party products. Let's assume that we're looking at something like this. Power Automate tends to go top to bottom. So does, I think, one or two other people. But this would be, a leave request scenario. I begin, I get somebody's leave balance, I ask for approval. Well, actually, this is screen real estate being what it is. I think it'll fit a little bit better if I rearrange it just to go from left to right. It just gives me some room to do what I'm about to do. So this is a process that goes from start to finish, and along the way we assign someone a task and react to it. But let's take this apart to see exactly how it works. That's the task right there, ask for approval. But let's break it down a little bit more. Even before the workflow starts, even before there are any tasks of any kind, disconnected from the workflow is some sort of form that's being submitted to trigger an event. Now, this could be a Power App. This could be an InfoPath form. This could be somebody else's forms technology. It could be the arrival of a PDF inside of a folder someplace. I don't really care too much. The point is, when I submit this, it triggers an event that starts a workflow of some sort. And again, this is what most everyone else does. And then once it starts, we move through a series of steps. And when we get to asking for an approval, this is a task. And what happens? It creates a task item someplace, maybe creates a notification message for it. And so one of two things will happen. If this could be something, it could simply be an approval, in which case I've created an item, and it could be an adaptive card or something like that, or it could be an email with messaging approval, and you've got a couple of buttons to click. If you need anything more than that, this will not be enough. And what you'll probably have to do is embed, there are a couple of companies that will create task forms that can copy fields from the original form and put them in here, and then they'll need to be inspected later. Or you can just provide a link back to the original form and make somebody use this. So in a worst case scenario, you get a task, you get an email to tell you about a task. And so you follow the email, takes you to a task item. You see the task item, there's a reference to this. You go here, you do whatever you're supposed to do here now. Then you have to come back here and mark the task complete. You're chasing a lot of things in a lot of places. And then behind the scenes, the task item has to tell the workflow that it's finished, usually by raising an event of some sort, or maybe the workflow is polling the task, or a couple different ways to get it done. But then we can move along and do everything else we have to do. Now, let's take this apart a little bit. For the other guys, a task essentially means, hey, do this. I'll check back with you later. The task is separated from the workflow. It's a complete, discrete, different thing. The task is not the workflow. The task is something created by the workflow, and then you do it. You fill out a form specific to the task. In a best case scenario, you might be filling out a form that just says, I finished it, and then you're on the honor system to have actually done what the task asked you to do somewhere else. The task list is not the same thing as the workflow instance list. And it's, at least in theory, this was absolutely true with Workflow Manager, and it was absolutely true with Windows Workflow Foundation 4.5. You might be able to delete a task without the workflow knowing that you did that. And that is not necessarily a happy, healthy thing. The workflow is going to wait for the task to phone home. Or it's going to keep polling the task to see if it was completed, one of the two. The second thing is the workflow, once it's completed, was going to have to take the task apart and examine the results, and then it will decide what to do with what it finds. So the workflow is communicating with the task. Basically, tasks are data. And you might think this is perfectly reasonable because you're used to this. But what we do at WEBCON is a bit different. The WEBCON way, which I believe is a better way, does it like this. Now, this is the same kind of process. We just make it look simpler because it is both an application flowchart and a process map at the same time, one diagram doing double duty. Behind those gears are a list of instructions of things to do when we move from one step to another. But, we're preparing the form, we're submitting it, it's getting reviewed, and then if someone chooses to approve it, it'll be approved. If someone chooses to reject it, it becomes rejected. So we create a form, and the form is something that is prepared, and then when someone chooses to submit it, we move it along. But along the way, we look up someone's leave balance to see whether or not they've accrued enough time to take the vacation that they want to take. And so now we're in the review stage. And in the review stage, essentially, whoever is supposed to be looking at this at the moment has the ability to click on the approve and reject buttons. But it's the same form. We just transform it a little bit. I moved the form from one state to another. The form is the workflow is the form in this particular case. We can be more nuanced than that, but this is the default. So I just move the form from preparation to review, and whoever's allowed to work on the form at this point will see the option to approve and reject. If you don't have edit privileges on this, then you won't have the ability to click these buttons or even see them. So far, so good. Let's go ahead and move a little bit forward. When someone clicks approve, these things happen. We update calendars and leave balances and notify the user, and then we move the form into the approved state, and then you can open the form again and you'll see what it looks like when it's approved. In each step, we might be showing different fields, concealing different fields, making some read write, making some read only. It depends. Now, but this is basically the WEBCON way. There's one form. In fact, let's do this. A task is simply an instruction to you to say, for the life of the following step, you're in charge of the workflow. It's not a separate thing. It's basically assigning responsibility for the workflow to somebody. And your task is the same thing as your workflow. The workflow is configured to expect you to do something, and it gives you options. But I don't have a separate thing going on. You're filling out the workflow form, not a separate task form. So I don't need to reconcile two different things. And the workflow is basically just going to do what you command. Because at the moment, if you're assigned the task, so to speak, it's only going to do what you command it to do. Now, yes, I can assign two different tasks to two different people at the same time during the same step, but then they've got different responsibilities on the workflow item at the same time. Tasks are basically, in our world, metadata, not data. It cuts down on management logistics in a big, big, big way. And generally speaking, this is esoteric. This is architecture type stuff. This is under the hood, under the bonnet type of details, depending on your point of view. But I actually think it informs the way we work. So let's talk about what you can do with tasks. And yeah, I've got a bunch of demos on them coming up. So task settings, I'm going to take you through how we assign tasks, where you go in our user interface to do it. Then we'll talk about how you determine who's going to receive the task, who are the assignees. Then we'll talk about how we make sure that they're notified that they have tasks. And then we'll move on to how they complete those tasks. And then finally, how will we know when they're done? Let's begin with the most obvious case, which is path assignments. We offer a lot of options, mind you, but we make the most common choice really easy to do, sort of smart defaults, if you would. So when we talk about path assignments, essentially you look at the path coming into a particular step and you configure it. You configure the path and say who the assignee is at the destination step. It's the most common way to do it, and you get notification available with just one checkbox. This is really easy to demonstrate. I have created a very simple application called Change Management. And this is the process. I haven't done any task assignments yet, but I have laid everything else out. I've got forms and I've got the workflow steps all laid out. So it begins with preparation and then someone submits it. It goes into a review step, and the reviewer has the option to either assign it to somebody to implement or decline it. We decided, a committee got together and thought reject was too harsh, so we decided to label it decline. And if you think that is silly, what the heck, let's go, we can rename it. But we see assign and decline. And we just need to make sure that when this moves into review, someone is responsible for carrying out the review step. And that's the easiest way to do this, is along the path from preparation to review. So let's open up this path. And here on the task creation tab, you see this, I'm configuring the path here. This is a path moving out of preparation towards review. And the task assignment that we will create along the way, I'm going to say I will accept the first response. Any of the following assignees can take it. And I'm going to, in this particular case, assign it to the superior, the manager of the current user, the author. All right, and again, I can send out email notifications with one checkbox. In fact, if I were defining copy people, I'll tell you what, let's always copy the author so they can always see what's going on. And I will send a standard email there. All right, let's go ahead and save this. And I will create a new item here. So the title, I'm just going to call this Alpha. I don't need a description and I don't need to indicate who's going to implement it yet. I just need a title. So let's submit it. And so Alpha has moved along. It's gone to my manager. My manager is Alice. And if we refresh this, we should see here is Alice's thing. I could also look in her tasks list for this application and see that she's got a task waiting for her. Now I'm going to back out of here, go back to the home page, and we see that she has assigned this. Actually, no, let's go ahead and decline this. Now here's what, this is an honest mistake. It's actually a deliberate mistake. I did this so that I could illustrate what's going on. When you move from step to step in a workflow, you need to indicate who gets it. In fact, the only times you don't need to have a task assignment set is at the very, very beginning, where the author is responsible for this, and at the very, very end, because if it's an finished state, either finished positively, you see that in green, or finished negatively, you see that in red. You could have multiple final states for both positive and negative, depending on how you get there. But unless it's in a final state or a start state, you must have a task assignee. So I need to open up decline and assign this to somebody. I'm just going to say, give it back to the person who created it, the author. Let's save it. I'll go back here now and I will decline it. I'm being told that I need a comment. What is this? Now I'll decline it. All right, and it went back to me. It's assigned back to me. We're back in the preparation state. That's exactly what we want to have happen, and I have a new task waiting for me. So that is the path of least resistance. It's the simplest thing for us to do. Oh, and I did mention messages, right? So let's go to mailboxes. And I am informed of a task being assigned to someone else. There it is. We'll come back to this later. And what I should have done is open up Alice's mailbox, where she was told that she had a new workflow task. Pay no attention to that. I will explain it later. All right, that's path assignments. Path assignments are 90 times out of 100, maybe 95, you'll do this. Now, you can get a lot fancier than that. We have something called task assignment actions that you can use instead. And task assignment actions are an action that you add to an event. That can be any event you need. Typically, it's done when you are entering a step. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Let's go back here. I'll keep working with the same one. So I'm going to open up this submit thing, and I'm going to get rid of sending emails and the task assignment that we have here and save it. Here under actions, so you see here submit. Actually, no, I'm going to do it here, because one of the most common ways to do this is there might be more than one path leading to this step. There might be 2 or 3 different ways to get here, and I don't want to repeat the task assignment for every path. So instead, I'm going to open up the target and go to the actions, and here on entry, I'm going to open up this, and this is right now it says new action. I'm going to say assign to manager, and this is going to be an action type of task assignment, create a task. And now when we go here to configure it, the task type, it'll be a direct assignment, and we'll send the default form. I'm going to predefine it to sending it to the author. Yeah, this is all good. I'm going to do this. All right, and now I save this. This will have the same effect as assigning something along the path, but like I said, if there were 2 or 3 different paths that all come here, and no matter how you get to this step, we want to do the same thing, this is more efficient. I only do the task assignment once. And to prove that it works, let's go back over here and go back to the change management dashboard, and I will create something new, beta, and submit it. And sure enough, it went to, actually it went to me, and I'm not sure why. Let's go back and take a very quick look, because it is very likely garbage in, garbage out. And sure enough, I assigned it to the author, which is me. I should have said assign it to the superior. All right, that's fine. It did exactly what we expected it to do, or exactly what I should have expected it to do. It did what I told it. So it went to me because I am indeed the author. So that's a task assignment. I did it on entry. We also have an event that is popular for assigning actions, and that one is on timeout. Let's open this back up. It's very likely that you might want to create a timeout event. And during a timeout event, you might want to add an action for assigning a task. And why would you do this? Because I very much might want to change who is assigned to this if it takes too long. Because if I don't have a timeout action, we're going to wait in this step forever. we are at rest, we are comfortable, no one's getting hurt. So if I add a timeout, if I don't want this to sit here forever, I've got a couple of choices. I make it so that I'm assigning to more than one person. It's someone else's job to administratively force it to move along, but then they need to check proactively. Or I add a timeout, and within a certain period of time, we can start sending extra notification messages or reassigning tasks or doing any of those good things. Now I am going to remove all of these to get ready for the next demo. All right, let's come back here. You can actually add a task assignment action on any event, and we've got a lot of them, but these are the two that are most common, especially on entry. The most popular use case for this would be, I've got many paths leading to the same target step. Also, I might be assigning multiple tasks to people I choose differently. And then, of course, reassigning if it's not completed within a deadline period. This second one, this actually bears a quick example. Let's go back here. And there's nothing requiring me to do this on the on-entry action. I could actually just as easily have done this on the path that brings me here, but we'll do it here. I can add one task assignment, and I can add a second one, which is also a task assignment. And here, I might be configuring it to go to the author. And here, the second action, I might be configuring it to go to the author's superior. We'll add all action configurations together to determine who is supposed to be working on this. These individual actions complement each other. So if you have, and again, it is possible to determine who is assigned a task in many different ways. That's coming up. The main thing is, with custom task actions, you have lots and lots of options. Alrighty, let's wait. I wanted to get rid of that too. Okay. Now, let's talk about how you choose who the recipients are. And you've got three different fundamental ways to do it. One, you've already seen. These are predefined roles. They are roles that are specific to the workflow or the process going on, like who is the author, who is the author's manager, who completed the tasks in the previous step, who has touched this in any way at any time. Actually, if you want a comprehensive list, let's open up Submit here and check this. So assigned to users who obtained tasks in the previous step or completed tasks in the previous step. If I only want to talk to the people that participated, not just assigned. Who's the current user? Who are all users currently assigned to this process? Who is assigned or delegated, or literally any person drawing breath. All of those are possible. Option number 2 is dynamic, and this means assigning it to a form field. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Let me go back here, and I'm not going to do this here. In fact, I'm going to leave that. Yeah, okay, assigning this to the superior. But when we get to the implementation stage, I want the reviewer to decide who's going to carry out this change. And I want them to assign it to whoever's in that field, which is a person or group field called implementer. So here I'm doing a dynamic assignment based on process data. It's coming from the form in this particular case, but it could also be calculated. There is a third way that is by far the most powerful. And in fact, you could do both of these inside of a business rule. Business rules are the way I can assign this to explicit users or groups. Business rules are the way I can look up values from a data source, a database query, a custom Active Directory or Azure AD query, something like that. Or I can do literal, not just modeled connected data sources. I can do abstract SQL queries to do some pretty crazy permutations. Like all people that have been taking part in this particular process, but are not assigned to the current step in the process. I might need to do a SQL query for that. It's not the simplest thing in the world, but it is very direct and regimented. In other words, it's just a matter of work. And it's possible in the first place. Most environments would not give you the option to do that anyway. Most of the time, it's one of these two things or a calculation of some sort. In fact, why don't we do this? I'm going to go back over here to this change request environment, and we already are setting the implementer to a person that's in the field on the form. When we submit, I had been submitting it to my superior, but let's change this up a little bit. Let me find the admin panel. There. I have a number of groups defined. And yes, we can use Active Directory groups. That totally works. Azure AD groups totally works. Pluggable authentication provider groups totally works. These are process-specific groups that I've created, roles to be used that only have meaning within workflow land. And I have this one group that I've called Parallel Approvers, and it consists of Just In Case, Luke Cloudwalker, and Rhoda Horse. And so Justin, Luke, and Rhoda are going to be my review committee now. So let's go over here to submit, and let's uncheck this and go to business rule. And I'm going to default to having this be a user assignment. So let's find Parallel Approvers and click OK. Now this could just as easily, let's go back over here. This could just as easily have been a function call to a SQL command, a data source value. We could call code to determine who is supposed to get this done. We could invoke a business rule that is loaded in a global catalog or a catalog to be used across multiple workflows in the same process. You've got lots and lots of choices, but let's go with the most obvious and straightforward one. So I now have step number 2 operating by committee, and I'm saying parallelism completion any. So if any of them respond to this, we move forward. It effectively means we'll take the first response. So if I come back here and I go back to this change management dashboard and I create something new and I click submit. Now, when we're looking at tabular columns, we only show the first assignee in the list. But if you open up the form, you can see that this is assigned to 3 different people, and 1 person has been copied on it because I never unchecked that CC thing. That's fine. This is exactly the way we want it to work. All right. And so if I go over here to Rhoda, Rhoda has a new task. She's being asked to review Gamma. And if she assigns it, oh, I need to provide a value here in this field. So let's assign it to Bill. And now it's moved on. Rhoda no longer cares about it. And we should see that it is assigned to Bill. And we're in the implementation step. And we've determined that he is the implementer. All right. That's how you select recipients. Now, let's move on to completion settings, because I don't necessarily want this to be the first person who responds to it. I may have more interesting requirements than that. So we will know that it is completed by any configuration steps we make in the outbound paths. Here's what I mean by this. I need to configure each of the outbound paths to determine what I will accept. And my options are to either wait for everyone to complete it, or I can force the other recipients to, I can force their tasks to be completed or canceled early. And I can base this either on everybody has to finish it or we can't move on, or I can say, you know, we're good once we hit a certain number of positive or negative responses or responses of any kind, or a certain percentage of total assignees. Let's jump into this. It's easier to show. So I'm going to go back here to where we're submitting this, all right? And I will open it up and I am assigning, yeah, I still have the author copied on everything. I'm actually going to take that off. I don't want to demo too many things at once. And here's what I'm going to do. I have parallel approvers, and I have said when we complete it, I will accept anything. I'm changing this now. I'm just saying all have to complete it. Now here under review, I need to look at my possible outcomes, my paths moving away from here. I basically said when we arrive here, I need everybody to respond. I'm not just looking for the first. And now I want to look at each one of these paths and their parameters. So here under assigned, I have three choices actually. I can say that when someone chooses this path, we still wait for everyone else to complete their tasks. Or I can say that when one person completes this, set all the other tasks as finished. Or I can say when one person completes this, set all the other tasks as canceled. And I'm going to opt for canceled. But I'm going to get a little more interesting about this. I'm going to say wait for the required tasks to be completed, but I'm not going to ask for all tasks to be completed. I am going to say a fixed number. So if I get 2 people choosing assign, that's enough to move forward. And I can say if 2 people decide to decline it, that's enough to abort and send it back to the author for revisions or cancellation. So in both cases, we're going to wait for everybody, but we will end prematurely if we get at least 2 declines or at least 2 assigns. And yes, if you don't want this to be an absolute number, you can choose a percentage. So now if I save the process and I click close, and I come back here and I create a new assignment and I click submit. This has gone to the entire review committee, so I'm going to open this up as Justin. Justin sees item Delta, and Justin needs to make a decision, so I like letting Bill do these things. And we click assign. Now it's been successfully updated, but it's waiting for other users to perform their tasks. In fact, this has not left because he's been given permission to participate in this process. He can still monitor this, but his duties are completed. We still need Luke and we need Rhoda to fill this out. So let's go to Luke and let's look at Luke's change requests. Here's this one called Delta. And if Luke also chooses assign, then it's assigned, it's implemented, it has moved on. I don't need a response anymore from Rhoda. Even though she was on the committee, I said 2 responses of any one kind are enough. All right. That, as they say, is that. Let's move on. Notification messages. You've got a lot of options when we come to notifications. You can do notifications in the Path Task Creation tab. That was when I went here to submit. I basically could say, by virtue of sending standard email, that sent out a notification message. You saw that already, actually. But I also, this is going to be a standard message. I can configure both to and CC items, but I have other options for doing notifications. So I can do notification actions. This could be a standard email or it can be a custom email. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to take this away. I don't want to send out the standard thing. What I want to do instead is along this submit path, I'm going to add another action, and this one is going to be notify committee. And this will be, the action type, excuse me, is a notification action. And we're going to send either a standard email, that's functionally not much different than just going with the default checkbox. You can do several of these at once, so sending different standard emails to different people, that's also possible. But I'm going to send something completely customized. And so this will be sent to, I need to pick who the recipients are. This could be always to specific people, lots of options here. So predefined, I'm just going to say assign this to the assigned, send this to the assigned people. But we can do dynamic notifications to fields in the form. We can all do lookups of many, many different kinds. And of course, abstract queries are possible. Now the content of the message, let's build this out of form content. So please approve or decline the change request made by, we can get interesting here, system fields. Let's see, who was the author, and let's go with their friendly name rather than login details. And entitled, and this will be a form field. Here's title. Don't be put off by those tokens that you see. They look a little bit strange. That's fine. If you view it as HTML, they look like nice, friendly, tokenized things. Let's see. Subject will be new change request. And why don't I throw the title in here too? Title of the task. Review change request. Also title. I don't want to show any clutter. So any links, I'll tell you what, I will put a link to, I'll put a link to the site and a link to the instance. I do still want to show those links, but I don't really want to show any fields, any recipients, task details. Yeah, let's throw those in there. All right, so that's enough. We can save this. And now I click close. Let's create yet another request. Let's call this epsilon. This should cause a bunch of emails to get sent out. And remember, the committee includes Rhoda, and includes Luke, includes Justin. Now here is that item, but what I really care about is what shows up in her inbox. We do need to be a little bit careful because email is not instantaneous. It is possible that we might not see this right away, and so I don't know if it's a good idea to wait around for it. What I might do is come over here and show you, let's see if I have a friendly looking email. No, these are all kind of geeky looking. What I was doing is, this would have been the title. I have said that recipients weren't included, so imagine this not being there. Also, system fields and details not showing up. So this would have been just the instructions here, some body text, the button to go to the individual form, or the button to go to the entire application. That's what should be inside of that email. Oh, okay, it has arrived. There, good. You don't have to imagine anything. There it is. All right, that's the nice friendly email. We'll talk about this in a moment. Now, this can be a standard email or a custom email, and it can be based on templates. So if you expect to send the same kind of email out a lot, you do not have to wait or do a custom composition every single time. So let me go back here. And if I open this up and you look at notify committee, I had to hand select who the assigned people were. I had to hand configure the message content. And if I find myself doing this several times, I might find it tedious, especially if I'm embedding logos and style information and I want to change it at some point. Remember, we at WEBCON love being easy to change. So what I can do is come over here to configuration, open up email notifications, and create a new email template. And in here, I can configure a custom message body and custom headers and subtitles and decide what is included and what is not included button-wise. And I can essentially set this up. It's created once, and then I can just point to it over and over again as one of several standard messages. If I go back here to the workflow, and back here to this action where I say send a custom email, what I could do is instead send a standard email and choose the template. All of that works. Now I am going to get ready for the next demo and remove that. And go back over here and just stick with a standard email. All right, let's save this. Because when we are completing tasks, we have several different options. Option number one is to just complete the tasks in the form. I've been doing that. You can do that via the web. You can do that a couple of different ways. It's actually quite easy. In fact, here, I'll do it on a mobile device. Whoops, there. Here we have frequently used applications. And if I refresh this, we should see down here under webinar, actually I don't, change requests is here and I can open this up, but most of the time when I'm looking at my tasks, I don't want to look at one application at a time. I want to see all of them at once. And there they are. And here is that one that was just done earlier for beta, and so I can choose assign or decline. That completely works. So, you know, buttons, it works great. And Outlook add-in, I was saying before, pay no attention to this. Well, if you have our add-in installed for Outlook, we have one that's universal, works in Outlook Web Access, works in Macs, works on devices. That's this. There's also a more elaborate one that uses more traditional technology, but it even tracks incoming emails and such. But here I'm looking at the narrow, compact version of the same form. So I never need to click on this item to open the form. I can just look at it here and decide to assign or decline. Oh, I need a comment. There. All right, so that's the form way. I can do this inside of lists, at least if I set up quick paths and mass approval buttons. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go back here, and I'm in fact going to look here, specifically at this change management dashboard, and I see 3 different items. In fact, you know who's going to care about this more than anyone? Bill. So let's go here to Bill. This is Bill's environment. Bill is in blue. You can see who it is by there. Each of these different colored browsers represents a different user. And if I refresh this, I see he's got 2 things. Now, I could individually open these things up and approve or reject, but right now I'm only seeing preview or open or postpone it or flag it. Let's do something a little bit better than that. I'm going to come back here, and I am going to choose under Implement. This path I'm going to say is going to be available as a quick path. In fact, I'm going to come back over here to review, and I'm going to make this also available as both assign and decline. I'm going to make those available as quick paths. So let's save the whole thing. And what effect does that have? Let's go back here to Bill. And let's refresh. And now if I click on this, you see that I've got Mark Complete available as an option. That wasn't there before. And if I go back here to a reviewer, let's see. Justin. Justin's got this up. Rhoda's already acted on this, so it's not assigned to her anymore. But Epsilon is still within the purview of Justin. If he clicks here on this, we see assign and decline. So without even opening it, if I've provided enough information in the columns in the data view, the report, quick paths allow you to take action immediately. And we can do this one better. Let's go back to the designer. And I'm going to go one step further. We'll go here to the report, the data view that I have defined. Here are the columns in the report, the instance number, the title, the author, the implementer, what step we're in, who it's assigned to, how long we've been waiting. I'm going to go here to mass actions, and I am going to add the path assign as a mass action. In fact, I'm going to do one more, which is to create decline as a mass action. Let's make these look a little nicer. And that should be enough. All right. Now if I come back here to Justin, and I will need to refresh this once, but now let's see, Justin doesn't have enough to review. Let me see, do I may choose a different workflow. I just need at least 2 things where I am, okay, here's one in preparation and one in review. And look, it's pretty simple. You click here and then you click on quick path, and then any quick paths can be operated on everything that's checked in bulk. And you can choose to get a report on the results, just in case, I may have chosen to approve 5 things, but one of them didn't have an implementer selected, so that would have raised an error. I might want to see a report of which ones failed and which ones succeeded. That's what happens in a bulk update. But yeah, I've seen lots of people ask for this kind of thing. It's been built into WEBCON BPS for quite some time. There's also email-based approvals. That turns out to be pretty darn easy. An email approval doesn't require a lot of extra work. In fact, look, you configure mail approval on the server. It is something that is not generic. Notifications are generic. We can use any SMTP environment to send out notifications. But to receive and process email, we will monitor an Exchange mailbox. This could be in the cloud and Exchange Online. This could be on premises and Exchange server. You dedicate a mailbox to WEBCON BPS. The replies go there. And then for each outgoing path from a step, you indicate how it's meant to work. You'll see it show up as HTML buttons, and the buttons will have mail to links built in. Let's just go ahead and configure the workflow we've been working on accordingly. I'm going to go back here to the change request lifecycle, and I'm going to go here to review. And I am going to open this up. And I am going to go back over to paths. And so I see assign and decline, right? Look over here at mail approval. Make sure that we're sending email of some sort. We are now. And here under mail approval, I'm going to say the path is available for mail approval. And the command that I will assign to this is the acceptance path. What are the paths? Let me flip over here. I'll do it later. Essentially, I have 3 mail approval paths, refusal, acceptance, and delegate. And I indicate which path. If someone chooses accept or reject or delegate, where do they go? They go here to the assign path. And I can have additional commands included in case you don't want assign to use. Essentially, you can type in a response or click on a button. But I'm going to say assign means acceptance, and the decline path is the path you take if you say any word that stands for refusal. All right, and let's save this. As for where you set everything up, including the possible responses, that's here under System Settings. And if you open up Microsoft Exchange, you will see Mail Approval. And that's where you indicate how to connect to the mailbox you're going to monitor. And that's where you enter the different commands that can be typed in. So if someone replies with no or cancel or reject or don't agree or don't accept, then we'll follow the refusal path. If someone replies with okay or yes or confirm or agree or accept, we'll send something along acceptance. And then if someone chooses to delegate or reassign or pass, we'll send it that way. In fact, you know, we could do, what I should do here, I want decline. And I might even want disapprove. All right, click save. Anyway, you configure the options here, you use them here, and I basically mapped different paths to different mail approval options. And so now that that's been done, I can come here and let's choose this, and I will even proactively say, look, we're going to give it to Bill. We always give it to Bill. I'll submit it, and now the review committee has it. And Justin should be seeing something in his mailbox any moment. Is this iota? No, this is epsilon. We may need to wait for it. Just in case, what you will see are a couple of extra buttons appear here under Mail Approve. Here it is, and here's Assign, and here's Decline. And if we were to choose Decline, you click that, here's No. This is a little icon, so that, or a little identifier, and all right, now I can send this in and it will advance along. I typed that extra stuff in so it would have comments. That's all there is to it. This will also interpret the reply text if the buttons aren't used. So had I simply clicked reply, that's fine. We still would have been okay. I just would have typed in any of those known text responses and we would have moved along normally. But the fact that there are buttons there that create automatic send to links or mail to links, that cuts down on a lot of typing and a lot of remembering what the acceptable terms are. You just click the button and you go. And that works even in plain text. All right, task-specific forms. This is one of what we have 2 minutes left, and so this is a quick advanced thing. It is possible to identify a specific form for a specific task. You would do that on the Forms tab. This is easier to demonstrate. Essentially, if I wanted a different, right now by default we pass one form along from here to here to here to here. We're changing some of the properties on the fields as it moves along, but if I want a completely different form to show up here during this step, I would come here to Forms, I would click here on New, and then I would start modifying which fields are visible and which things showed up where, and let's see what the field matrix is for different things and which different steps were available and not available, as the case may be. So I can have completely different things appearing or not appearing depending on what's going on at any given time. So if you want a custom form for a particular step in a process, it's really easy to make that work. And then finally, there is sub workflows. If you have really unusual and interesting requirements, we've got you covered. If multiple forms aren't enough, because it's not just, we're not just going to pause at one step and send different people different requests. Like here, I did parallel assignments to multiple different people. I could have given each of them a different form. This would have been a reason to put different task assign actions here under submit. One assignment could be to the technical reviewer with a technical review form. A different assignment also put here on a line as an action could have been an assignment to the financial review committee to do a cost estimate as to what it would be, and so on and so forth. There are lots of good reasons for doing that. But if it's not just one step, and I actually want them to go through doing a whole bunch of different things, I have yet another option available to me, which is assign a sub workflow to each thing. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll close out. I happen to have this process here, which is a parent workflow. And let me take you to this particular example. So I will send out a request to 3 different people, and each of them I want someone to choose an animal, someone to choose a color, someone to choose a food. And when I submit this, 3 different sub workflows will be started, and each one of them will come back with updating my master workflow with a selected animal, a selected color, a selected food, and you can follow the individual sub workflows right here. This one is a bit on the advanced side, but you should know that it's possible. And all it really took for me to do was here under waiting for responses, I have a start a sub workflow task or action. I indicate which process, which workflow, and which form gets filled out, and I can even stuff, I can feed values to it so that I can start with information in the form. So I do that first. And then the second thing, those workflows in turn are authorized to update me. And then when I, here under sub workflow setting, if there are no workflows, which path do I take? If all the workflows finished positive, follow this path. If any workflow finished negative, follow this path. And then we move along. And that's that. There's obviously a lot more to it, but we'll talk about parallel processing in a different webinar. But yes, if things get weird, you've always got sub workflows to follow. And you can do roll-up reporting and workflow status and all that good stuff. All right, well, in summary, when you start with tasks that can't get lost because they're tightly coupled to the workflow itself, and you add in easy express assignments where just a couple of clicks assigns a step to a particular person, gives them a task to work on it. But you've got really flexible recipient options and really flexible outcome options and really flexible notifications and the ability to do mail approval and task-specific forms when you want them. And sub-workflows. Well, you take all of that and it adds up to a wonderful way to workflow. The WEBCON way. PowerPoint has stuck. There we go. The WEBCON way. Thank you very, very much for attending this webinar. And if you have any questions of any sort, you can go to www.webcon.com, or you can type them into the chat window and I will do my best to answer them right now. It looks like, can we email a recording link? Yes, it is a standard practice of ours to make sure that you are informed as to what's going on. Yes, there will be a recording of this. We will send you a link to it. Because of a couple of things that happen, I am going to clean it up, including that last bit with the closing PowerPoint slides. I will be cleaning it up just a little bit before I do it, so don't expect it for about a week. Can I give an overview as to how this integrates into SharePoint Online? I am so glad you asked me that, because we did a webinar a couple of weeks ago specifically on how WEBCON BPS integrates into Microsoft 365. Go check the recording of that webinar. It covers everything you want. And if you need a link to it, email me, mikefitz@webcon.com. Any other questions? Can default settings for tasks be set in a similar way to email templates so they don't need to be set for every task? Let's see. I guess it depends on what default settings you have in mind. The settings, normally if you're only meant to make a choice, it's a function of whatever paths are leading away from the step. So the model determines what the task looks like. If you arrive at a step with two paths leading away from it called approve and reject, then all those tasks are there. If you have, I see where you're going with this. You mean with all the assignees predetermined and all of that? Yeah, you've got two choices. Choice number one would be a business rule that returns the same. You can use groups. You can have a business rule that's predetermined, then you just reference the business rule to bring back the same set of task assignees. But we also have these things called action templates. And let's go here to configuration. And an action template is a standardized item. So it's not so much a standard task, but it could be a step, well, here's a task assignment, creating a task, and I would configure it here. And so all the assignment rules would be configured just once, and all the notification rules would be configured just once, and then I could use this action template over and over again in one or more workflows. Action templates can be shared within a process, and you can have multiple workflows per process. So yeah, that totally works. Any other questions? You guys are asking good ones, by the way. Thanks. All right, going once, going twice. Sold and finished, and thank you for attending. There will be another webinar coming up very, very soon. It's either next week or the week after. You'll find out plenty of information about it proactively in email. Thanks so much for attending, and have a great rest of your day.